Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
So, as you may or may not know, the WBC have ordered a final eliminator for the mandatory position between Luis Ortiz and Dillian Whyte. Now, what we didn't know when we were seeing this was that the WBC have said that this is a secondary mandatory. So, Dominic Breazeale is the mandatory. So, even though Dominic Breazeale is ranked number 2, Dillian Whyte is ranked number 1. I've never heard a ranked number 2 guy become the mandatory. I've never ever heard this. Now, Eddie Hearn has written confirmation from the WBC president Mauricio Sulaiman that Dominic Breazeale, when he fought Eric Molina, now Dominic Breazeale was ranked in the top 10 by the WBC. Prior to that fight, Eric Molina was ranked between 10 and 15, right? So how is that a final eliminator? Now, Mauricio Sulaiman said to Eddie Hearn, no, that is not a final eliminator. It's just an eliminator. The winner will not become mandatory, because that would just be ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. And each time Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte say, okay, right, we're going to fight Robert Helenius. Is this going to be an eliminator? Yeah, of course it will. So they got the silver belt, the WBC silver, and been paying the sanctioning fees. Okay, now we're going to take on Lucas Brown. Is this going to be a final eliminator? Yeah, of course it is. Okay, here's your sanctioning fee. All the while keeping his number 1 position. Now, Dillian Whyte should have been made mandatory by now. If not, at least put into a final eliminator against Dominic Breazeale. That would be the logical move, right? Even though technically Dominic Breazeale shouldn't even be there. After beating Eric Molina, you don't deserve to be there. You really don't. But anyway, that is what it is. So the WBC are clearly being corrupted somewhere, or just plain stupid. Now, we know that they have a history of plain stupidity. You know, they create belts just for fun for certain fights. They just do ridiculous things. I mean, look at the rankings. They had Bermane Stiverne as the mandatory, for crying out loud. How did you have Bermane Stiverne as the mandatory when he didn't fight for 2 damn years and scraped through a win prior to that against Derek Rossi, of all people, and before then lost to Deontay Wilder? So now they want to make Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz, who, by the way, Luis Ortiz lost his last fight, right? They want to make him and Dillian Whyte for the secondary mandatory. So they are going back on their word. They've lied is what they're doing. But we shouldn't be surprised. The WBC protection program of Deontay Wilder has been in full operation for quite a few years now, right? For at least 3 years, ever since he became champion. You know, they've been protecting him to get in the title shot, waited for Vitaly Klitschko to retire, then a pathetic champion in Bermane Stiverne to get in there, and then Deontay Wilder can seize his opportunity, and he's been allowed to take on not even top 10 ranked opponents ever since. Absolutely outrageous. So, of course, we should be not surprised by any of this. We really shouldn't. Mauricio Sulaiman, man, you're a crook, and you know it. You have dropped the ball on this one. There is documentation that shows that you agreed to Dillian Whyte being there, not Dominic Breazeale. You specifically said Dominic Breazeale versus Eric Molina is not final eliminator. Even though at the time, Dominic Breazeale and Al Heyman and other people were saying it was. And since then, Dominic Breazeale has been saying, I'm the mandatory. So the WBC have lied. They have told Breazeale, yes, you will be the mandatory. Absolute crook. So this is another, on top of the many things that they do, the WBC, but this is another one which shows that they're pretty incapable of making correct decisions. Because clearly they're taking some kind of back money, right? Al Heyman paying him like a bit of money to rank his guys. It has to be. This is a clear corruption. Now, of course, they're trying to make everybody happy, but they do this time and time again, not just a heavyweight, but through other divisions. It's ridiculous. Dillian Whyte should be either the mandatory or final eliminator for mandatory, at a minimum. Now, Eddie Hearn already said, yes, we will take the Luis Ortiz fight. We don't have an issue with that. But he better be fighting Wilder or Brazil next for the title. So in other words, if Wilder is taking on Brazil next, which by all intents and purposes he is, and Wilder's going to say, well, I'm facing my mandatory, even though he's not the mandatory. So Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz should be for the final eliminator, not secondary, but final eliminator. Also, added to that, if Deontay Wilder does take on Dominic Brazil next, which it does look like it's going to happen, as he put in a contract, well, it wasn't a contract, it was a term email to Anthony Joshua, they would fight at the end of the year. That's pretty much saying that they're going to fight Dominic Brazil next. He did say, if Dillian Whyte fights Luis Ortiz and beats him, I guarantee you that you will fight me next. What, even if there's a Joshua fight? Hey, sorry man, you've already said it. Let's hold you to your word, shall we? If you are fighting Dominic Brazil next, and the WBC allows this, of course, it's a voluntary. You can do whatever you want. You know, you can fight anybody, really, for a voluntary. But if you choose Dominic Brazil, fine. I don't have an issue with that. And if Luis Ortiz and Dillian Whyte fight next, you said that you will fight Dillian Whyte if he beats Luis Ortiz next. So I am expecting Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Brazil, then Deontay Wilder versus Dillian Whyte. I'm not expecting Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Brazil, then Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. No, that's not what you said. You said, I guarantee you, I'm a man of my word. You fight Luis Ortiz, I will fight you next. Right, let's see, shall we? Drop your thoughts below, click that thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.